Bill and the rest of the fleets were in stand-to posture for over a week, at which time at least 10% of every single fleet headed towards the Foxy sector, and each one of them ready for a fight. But by the time they arrived, the battle was long over, and the question is, what do we do with this leftover harvester anyway? Immediately, they tried contacting the furry residents of the closed planet, and to everyone's surprise, Hank responded himself, though he was a little more gray on the fur, as everybody had known that, well, they decided not to do the technology that extended their lifespan. He explained that the population of his planet is still recovering and does not have the ability to handle anything quite that large, not even close. In fact, if you count all the ships on their planet, they barely have enough, which were mostly corvettes and frigate class, to even evacuate the planet if they need be. Admiral Yushu Shin was the first to sit there and strike a deal. He had to, as the rules for legitimate salvage are very, very clear. This is Foxy territory, which means, doesn't matter who destroyed it, it means the salvage is theirs to do as they desire. Yet, if they choose to share the spoils, well, the humans' furry friends can set themselves up quite nicely if they choose. The deal was struck that salvage ships will arrive with protective escort. A full-blown space station will then be erected via the Foxy designs that they sent up. On top of that, one space dock will be moved and loaned to the Foxy species until the resources of the harvester have been completely drained. In exchange, 9% of all resources will be taken as payment from this harvester, to include the remains of the engine and the AI on board. This will take decades to complete, as this giant metal ball is still fairly intact. This, of course, being the second of these balls that humanity has actually kicked in. When the word got back to the Sol system, of course, everybody stood down and could finally unclench. And Bill was actually surprised that both of his children will be taking part in taking apart the harvester. Cindy will be working with the other large cargo haulers and ferry materials back and forth to the colonies and to the planet, as they require it far more than the core worlds. She and her crew work so well with the local population that soon she even took on a foxy-looking man as a new employee. When Bill heard about this, he wanted to know who this person was. When he received the image, he had to chuckle a little bit, as not only the image but the videos that were sent. Not because it turned out to be Hank's grandson. No. Not because he still insists on wearing that yukata style of clothing. No, that wasn't it either. Not because of his mannerisms, but because he happens to be so large compared to all the rest. In comparison, Cindy stands at 5'11", but she barely reaches up to his chest. Even the human men, all standing between 6'2" and 6'4", only reach the fox's shoulders with the top of their heads. The crew species are a bit short compared to humans, and compared to the Kinsunes, they look like children. However, don't say that to the crew species. Definitely don't say that. Because when anybody, doesn't matter what species, says that, they find out how incredibly strong and incredibly fast the crew species might be. Joe himself was able to make some extra money by using his own cargo bays to assist with salvage. In particular, he would loan out some of his drones, even loan them out to his sister, to speed up salvage. On top of that, he would also utilize his bay to assist with emergency repairs on any ships that needed it, or even emergency medical care, which seems to be more common than people think. All this on top of the payments he gets from simply overwatching all the salvage operations and also escorting with the cargo haulers. Though he is far from the only warship, his modifications seem to aid everyone's in ways that people never thought possible. Watching his warship operate actually led to a redesign of all ships that would be coming out for the human fleets. Originally, everybody wanted to call it the Joseph class. However, he said, no, this is not just my ship. This belongs to the Lovely Angels. And since nobody thought warships should be called Lovely Angels, they decided to call it the Battle Angel class. In particular, this new class would actually not just be for battleships, but also frigates and cruisers as well, although they couldn't find enough room in the destroyers to actually use these additions. Additions, originally believed to be incredibly ostentatious, however, these modifications showed their value quite literally as they were making this battleship money. The real interest in upgrading the fleets actually comes from what they discovered inside the defeated Harvester. Everybody had hoped that they would find the AI intact, but since it was inexorably tied to the engines, and the engines had, exploded, the best they could hope for was the ship's logs. This is why you never, ever give up hope. The survey team that located the large hardened container had no idea what they had actually discovered at first. Like Schrodinger's cat, they had to open it first, and when they did, they discovered the intact hard drive in what everybody now refers to as the black box. Of course, the first thing everybody asked was, why couldn't we salvage it from the first harvester we shot up? Well, given the location, it was perfectly clear that the first harvester's black box was not just damaged in the explosion, but literally atomized when all that force literally hit it at point blank range. Basically like being hit with a fusion reaction at ground zero. Unlike the first harvester, where they fired everything as hard and deep as they could directly into the orifice, causing a severe blowout, the second one actually had more locations for the blast to go since it was fired at from two different off angles at the same time, which is why the blast not only didn't stop the harvester and sent it going backwards like the first one, but it also allowed the blast to go away from the black box, saving it from a direct hit. It didn't take long at all for all the AI to decode what was inside the black box, and it gave absolutely vital information. This second harvester had been sent to, and it's quoting directly, "destroy those ungrateful of being elevated by our presence." Its mission was to consume both moons and then move on to the planet. This would take a long time, which would allow everybody on the world to basically see their doom coming weeks in advance. Once everything was consumed, it was to sort through the planet, find any type of logs, any type of information, and sort out how the Fox species were able to create a dangerous battle group so fast, especially since they seemed to know exactly how many had got away initially. Looking over the data, there was absolutely zero mention of any other species. They believed that only the Foxy species were the ones that actually were able to fight against them. As it turned out, using the Foxy language to communicate was probably the best idea they had. This means that their adversary still doesn't realize who, or in this case what, just beat their ass into oblivion. Checking the mission parameters again, once this harvester completed its mission, it was actually meant to directly return. A quick check shows that the mission would take 11 human years, max. As large as the harvests are, it should be noted it still takes time to consume an entire planet. Unfortunately, it has no information on what would happen if the harvester just didn't return. Everybody speculated a recon flight at the slightest. Others believe a full fleet would be deployed, which is why the cargo haulers need to be protected. And they also believe this because, last time there was a fleet, they literally came up towards the human ships, and the human ships said, "Here's your ass." Even with all this information, what the residents of the Sol system were very interested in was the information about the harvester that actually entered Sol. When that information is shared, everybody listened. As it turned out, the harvester was not heading towards Earth. Earth just happened to be in the way. This, of course, freaked out everybody that had made Venus their home, turning it green over time and making sure they have vast cities that are unbelievably beautiful. They do pride themselves on how clean they keep things. However, it takes a lot of work, and it took a lot of work to get here. And they didn't want to see their work get decimated, even if they could leave the planet before this thing came in and munched them like a snack. They also found out that the reason why the harvester exploded the way it did is because it had recently eaten a small gas world. Not quite a gas giant by human standards, but it was a gas world. A world that was extremely heavy in hydrogen and methane. When people heard this, humanity as a whole slightly chuckled as they realized the harvester had actually died to a super fart. When this was said live by one of the greatest scientists of their time, everybody, regardless of age, regardless of where they grew up, regardless of what ship they were on, what planet, it didn't matter, everybody laughed. However, this jovial feeling was short-lived as everybody realized the first harvester is actually overdue for its return. Upon hearing this as a revelation made humanity's pucker factor reach over 9,000. Since harvesters don't appear to be a cheap piece of equipment, everybody knows that an enemy recon could actually arrive at any time. This is another reason for the increased defenses all around the world's colonies and outposts, along with the fleet, of course. On the bright side, as it turned out, the harvester did not take a direct route to the Sol system, which means that if they place a fleet or even a battle group in one of the previous sectors that it traveled through, they could simply wait and ambush. Perhaps this way it will look like a species that actually lost their homeworld to a harvester, and any species that happens to tends to be nomadic. Given the vast size and scale of space itself, spending all that time trying to find a species that has the ability to just up and move at any given time would actually be a losing gambit. By the time you found them and sent the message back, rallied a fleet, and sent them over, they'd just be gone. It'd be a waste of time and a waste of resources. This is one of the strategies that was discussed, one of very, very many. No one had any illusions on what needed to be done, and they would do anything to protect the Sol system, as officially they were at war with a species that only cared about its own vanity. Since everything in war is subterfuge, that is why humanity will do just that, along with it having an extremely and very layered defense, just in case. Aboard his ship, Bill began making some additional modifications to his ship. First, he redesigned the systems for the entire ship so that everybody on board could suit up in moments. As Bill puts it, in combat, a single second can't be wasted. Just that one little second can the difference between a medal and a body bag. He also commissioned some additional weapons to be added to the hull, along with upgrading the ones that were there, as well as making sure there was some weapons inside the ships. Things that could just pop out of armored blisters or out of the floor or something, anything. So that way, if any of the enemy actually did get through, there would be some nasty surprises waiting for them, most of which would fire from crotch level. On top of that, each of the bulkheads are checked, and at least half of them are reinforced so that the ship can take even more punishment. All this costs material and time. Even though they have plenty of ships due to the continued salvage, Bill just wished he could get his own ship printed out, a new one, a brand new one with all the amenities he actually would want. The issue is that every military is already commissioning all sorts of vessels, and the space docks to build these ships are going to be backed up for the foreseeable future. And there's just not going to be any openings for, as they put it, a civilian admiral to get a spot. Because of the constant delays, the constant excuses, and the constant disrespect from everyone else, eventually Bill gets to the level of fuck it and begins the long process of getting his own space dock built. With all the materials needed, the manual labor to put it together, not to mention the insane amount of applications that need to be signed off for him to legally build it inside the Sol Sector, as well as a simple construction that's going to take forever. This is all going to take a long time. As Bill takes care of the legal and logistics area, Aya is just about giddy at the idea of getting a new ship for herself, a new ship body. For an AI, this is tantamount to an elderly person getting the chance to live their life over again from the absolute best shape of their lives. The entire family, when they hear about it, is on board with the idea, even to the point of donating some of their own materials to aid in the construction. Cindy and Joe make it a point to call back to their parents when they actually heard the news. Cindy offered to help with logistics and a little bit with ship design, as she didn't actually build a warship. Joe offered all his data on what worked on his ship and what didn't, as well as what he had seen that others had done that he was like, dang, I thought I'd thought of that before. This will greatly help in the design to optimize everything. Even though he can only offer a little bit in logistics, Joe is more than willing to help out with anything. His little dirty pair were also very interested in helping out, as they had designed Joe's ship as well. As construction of the family space docks, as in 2 of them, is just beginning, in an empty sector, a human battle group awaits. On the fringes of the sector, interdictor ships stealthily wait in the void as well. They overwatch this battle group as it rotates in the orbit of where the small gas giant once rotated itself. The group that sits there consists of 4 battleships, 19 destroyers, and 5 frigates. Between the ships and the star, one could clearly see on their sensors a scattering of parts. Parts taken from the second harvester. Parts laid out to give the impression that the harvester had somehow fallen into the local star. This is a very boring assignment for everybody. An assignment that only required a skeleton crew to be on duty at any given time, as the rest of the crew try to activate their dopamine receptors with whatever and whomever they can. Just sitting in the void for days, weeks, months, up to years. No one believed that the recon group would even arrive. No one believed that the enemy species would actually care about one piece of equipment that was lost. It's been so long since it went missing, they're surely uninterested by now, right? That is, until they're all startled to their post with a sound that told everybody they had better be ready as soon as they can, because they got company.
General quarters, all hands man your battle stations. Set material conditions Zebra throughout the ship. Make Z report to DC Central.
Everybody rushed to their posts, getting ready for a huge fight, but when they looked through the sensors, the recon flight was nothing special. There was 1 battleship, 2 cruisers, 5 destroyers, 2 frigates, and 4 corvettes. Everyone kind of looked at each other and said, "Really? That's it?" The recon ships began to scan the area, but the interdictor ships that were still placed around the system made that near impossible. They would have to get closer to try and get through the interdictor field. As they got closer and closer to where the planet would have been, they should be able to cut through it ever so slowly. As the recon group got closer, the human battle group turns everything on. Even with limited sensors, no one's going to miss an energy burst that much. On top of that, there seems to be a conveniently unencrypted transmission going around between the ships. A transmission that was pre-recorded, but nobody knew that. If one listened close, they could make out the words harvester, attack, star, fall, gravity, leave, hide, run, all of which are in the Foxy dialect, but performed in a way that no Foxy personnel could actually pronounce them. It's not physically possible. That is, at the moment, altogether, the human ships move just far enough from the star to be noticed. Then they jump away. Not quite in the opposite direction of Earth and the colonies, but close enough. If done right, the enemy will decipher the message, see the debris headed towards the star, and think that the harvester was damaged somehow, and damaged enough that it burned up in the giant red ball that is the local star. Then they will notice that even with superior numbers, the fleet that they face choose to flee. Putting two and two together, they should compare this to the battle over at Zoro 2 and conclude that this unknown species had lost their world and made friends with the Foxy folks, but without their own home planet, they would be nomadic and almost impossible to pin down. Seeing how they got their asses kicked before, this should dissuade any of these vain species from attacking Zoro 2 again, and instead chase the shadows into the void if they so choose. A shadow that's just not there. As word spread about the mission's success, Bill told everybody, "Don't count your chickens before they hatch." He emphasized that the species have not taken the bait, not yet. This is just a delaying tactic after all. Right now, everything is quiet. Everything is calm. All the logistics are moving right. Everyone is living good. And as we move slowly into the void of space, yet not a single person in human territory can possibly relax. He tells them all, even back in the past, we would say how everyone would hurry up and wait. There was a good reason for this. A reason you constantly prepare. A reason I have you all training. When it finally happens, when it finally kicks off, just like any large-scale event, it's going to just suddenly happen fast. It's going to believe this happened right there, right now, and you better be ready. Sometimes faster than you can even react. Keep that in mind. You need to be ready for when that moment comes, because the moment comes in only a moment. You need to know how to react. Only when he was alone with Aya did he ever mention something that would make others question his words. He was sitting there on the bridge once again, just him and her looking out into the stars, seeing the space docks being constructed. He held her close as they looked out, and he said, "An old warhorse like me can feel it." She looked up, confused. He continued with, "A change in the tides, in the winds. We can feel it when forces are moving, sometimes moving against us. If we wait too long, it will overtake us. We won't be ready. So we do the only thing we can do. Prepare for the coming storm." Hello everybody, this is Syntax. Thank you for joining me today on Part 7 of this ongoing series. Now before I go, I need to ask you guys, what do you think about using the sound effects that I tried today? Also, I need to say that the winner for today's contest is Julius Boone. And I finally have to send out some great big thank yous to the supporters of this channel, and those would be Prozac and Pancakes, Sir Brian Kemp, SS Demon, MTF Guard, Douglas Scarborough, Erica Gem, Joseph Blosh, and Guardian Sage. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax.
Ejecting!